Hi there, I'm Rachel Jackson with Yum Healing Arts, and I'm here to talk to you today about hypersensitivity in aromatherapy and through the lens of traditional Chinese medicine and five elements philosophy. So, hypersensitivity can stem from a variety of places, and we want to cover the basics as aromatherapists, and we can just kind of get that out of the way first. So some of the first things to ask are the quality of the oils. I mean, that's an obvious one, but a lot of times we stop there and we just attribute hypersensitivity to thinking somebody is having a reaction to a poor quality essential oil, something that has maybe some synthetics in it or has been adulterated in some way. And sure, that's valid. That's a good thing to cover as a foundational piece. But I don't think that we need to stop there. And we've come a long way in the field of aromatherapy. There are so many options now for high quality therapeutic grade artisan distilled essential oils. So stopping there feels a little flat, and I encourage you to ask more questions because that's a good place to start, but it's not the end of the story. So another question to ask in that preliminary phase is to assess whether somebody is on medication. If somebody's on a lot of medications, it puts a lot of strain and pressure on the liver to process those medications. It's something to be aware of. You want to be working with a qualified aromatherapist who has experience, who can help you through that, because you don't really want to use essential oils that are going to be like detoxing the liver when you're on medications if you need them for your health. So if somebody's on a lot of medications, that's something to consider. That could be creating hypersensitivity because there's already a lot of strain or pressure on the liver to process medications, and so essential oils might add to that, and we want to be mindful of that. If we're going to bring in aromatherapy, we would bring it in a different context in that situation. So hypersensitivity in general, from a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, is associated with liver, gallbladder, and the wood element within. So any type of hypersensitivity could fall into that category. We would want to address liver, gallbladder, and the wood element. And I'll talk more about that, and stick around till the end of this video because I am going to give you some acupressure points that you can use to help harmonize liver, gallbladder, and the wood element within, and essential oils that you could use on those points, but you don't necessarily have to use essential oils on those points if you're in the phase where you're just too sensitive to essential oils. The thing about hypersensitivity is that we can tend to either glorify it and think that it is this special gift, which it can be, especially if you're a wood archetype. Your constitution is going to maybe be prone to being hypersensitive, and it can be a gift when it's in balance and when it's regulated. However, when we start to glorify it and enable, we can sometimes get ourselves into a situation where it's out of balance, and we don't want to be so hypersensitive that we're constantly recovering from our environment or destabilized because we're so sensitive to the things around us. It kind of makes our world get smaller and smaller. So rather than glorifying it as this special thing or judging it as this issue that you've got, this disharmony, we would just want to gather information and use that to help find balance and improve the quality of our life so that sensitivity doesn't have to destabilize us. So, like I said, first questions, quality of the essential oils, or if you're just allergic or sensitive to synthetic fragrances. Medications, that's something to know whether or not somebody's on medications. Third thing to check in with is hydration, how much water the person is taking. If they're dehydrated, that can create hypersensitivity to the oils. So even right in a session, if somebody's having a reaction, and give them some water, and obviously it depends on the kind of reaction that they're having, how we would address it, but making sure that people are hydrated before we put essential oils on for a therapeutic application, that can be helpful too. Last but not least is the emotional load. So hypersensitivity can also show up when there is an excess of repressed emotions or trauma that has not been dealt with or processed yet. And this really shows up when we have clients who are sensitive to things that we don't expect somebody to be sensitive to. That's usually when my cue is to let me know that maybe there's more emotional processing here than that's under the surface that we aren't aware of yet. And smell, our sense of smell and a scent can be very subjective. So somebody's reaction to something can be very different from somebody else's reaction to something. And so sometimes that's physical and individual and constitutional, and sometimes it is actually emotional, how our relationship to that scent. So sometimes hypersensitivity has to do with emotional processing, and if there's a lot of repressed emotions, then the best approach that I've found as an aromatherapist is to help the person feel safe and stable. Safety and stabilization helps a person begin to broach unprocessed emotions. So that's the next place I would go. And then supporting liver, gallbladder, wood element. So safety would come from water element and the kidneys, adrenals, bladder organs, tonifying those yin organs and helping a person feel safe, taking a more restorative approach. And then stabilization, which would be more the earth element, relating to digestion and the spleen and the pancreas as well. So how we are able to digest our emotions and process traumas or experiences that were really challenging, difficult emotions. So those would be a good place to start. And then liver, gallbladder, wood element for beginning to harmonize the sensitivity aspect of things. Hypersensitivity can relate to different senses. Sensitivity to sound, sensitivity to smell, sensitivity to being visually overstimulated, sensitivity to temperatures, heat and cold. And each sense organ gives us information about what other organs are at play. It may not just be liver, gallbladder. This is where things get more interesting with traditional Chinese medicine and aromatherapy, is that both of these fields, they don't have an easy answer. So if you get an easy answer, that might give me pause, because there isn't really an easy answer. If somebody asks me a question about this, I'm going to say, well, it depends. And then I'm going to ask you 10 more questions. So it can go much deeper than this, but I wanted to give you some context. So let's talk a little bit about the liver, gallbladder, and this wood element, and hypersensitivity. So the function of the liver and the gallbladder and this wood element within is smooth, harmonious flow in body, in mind, and emotions. The liver contains the blood when we are resting, and it circulates the blood when we are in movement. It filters out toxins. And the liver contains our ethereal soul, which is the aspect of our spirit that is responsible for our vision, our inner vision, our connection to purpose, our direction in life, and being able to see clearly the path forward as to start to activate our growth towards our purpose. It has a rising and expanding nature to it, it's a source of inspiration where we feel connected to the world around us. It's really highlighted in the season of spring, but some of us might have a wood archetype that's dominant. And so we might have a strong wood element where it can become easy for this element to be on overdrive, or our archetype element will often go out of balance very easily too, because we can have excess and deficiency there depending on how we're relating to it. But I am a wood archetype, so I'm very familiar with these patterns and getting stuck in them a little bit. So I'm going to give you some points here to help support liver and gallbladder. And I'm going to give you the source points. So source points in traditional Chinese medicine are points that you can use to assess the health of the organ. And you can use light pressure on them to help harmonize. And they kind of like, it's like refueling the batteries of that organ. It helps to tonify deficiencies. But if you press on them or like hold just very light pressure on them, sometimes you can feel there's like a bulging action of pulsing out towards your fingers, or this like emptiness where your finger just falls into the point and there's like an emptiness there. And that can help us with assessing the health of the organ, but also as you hold with the essential oil, you may notice that it regulates. I like to hold the points for anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, but I'm also gauging what I'm feeling under my finger as I'm holding the point. So the source point for the liver is liver 3. And I'm going to tilt the camera down so you can see on my foot. And you're going to see probably a little bit of a blue mark because I already put oils on before the video. And so you'll see my blue tansy right here at liver 3. So it's between the metatarsal of the big toe and the second toe, and you're just slightly up. It's 2 sun proximal to the webbing between the first and second toe. You can kind of see where the blue mark is of the blue tansy. So blue tansy on liver 3 helps to support the liver qi. It helps to spread that liver qi, clearing liver qi stagnation, clearing any heat in the liver, and calms and regulates the energy there through that channel. So blue tansy, you can do it on both feet. You can do one at a time, or if you're laying down, you might, put your feet up on the wall to hold the point more comfortably so you can really relax into it. Again, lightly, just touching lightly with the essential oil and holding that point. Now, the source point for the gallbladder is gallbladder 40. It's just under the ankle, towards the back of the ankle, but underneath the anterior base of the external malleolus. And you can use Laurel on gallbladder 40. This helps to empower perspective. And this is called the wilderness mound point. So it's really like climbing to the top of a mountain and gaining that perspective as you come to the summit. You can see where you've been, you can see where you're going. And this is an ideal point for someone who feels a little bit lost in their journey and needs some clarity, especially we're in Mercury retrograde now, and sometimes things can feel really confusing and unclear. And I like using Laurel on gallbladder 40 point whenever I feel that way. It helps me gain perspective, and Laurel helps with just finding that sense of courage, cultivating that sense of courage from within. It helps move the lymph and circulate energy through the channel so that there isn't so much stagnation or pain. It's great for the joints in general. If you have joint pain, gallbladder 40 can be a nice point to use. And Laurel on this point helps to harmonize, gently lifts the chi and clarifies the mental body, calms the emotional body, and moves any stagnation. So again, you can do it on both sides, and you can hold the point for anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. And I want to give you one more point. When you're working with finding stability and safety, I mentioned earlier the kidney, adrenals, and the earth for stability. So this is the earth point on the kidney meridian. It's kidney 3, between the ankle, the inner ankle, and the Achilles tendon, right in the middle. Between the ankle, the Achilles tendon, right in the middle. And you can use essential oils like Cedarwood for stability, or Vetiver if there's aspects of like feeling unsafe or feeling afraid to be your authentic self. If you need a quiet pause and you need to be able to feel safe to lean into that, you might use Vetiver. I would not use this point if you are pregnant or think you might become pregnant. This really helps to draw the energy down out of mental hypervigilance, fear, anxiety, overthinking. So it's useful for that, but if you are pregnant, I would not use this point because it really promotes downward moving energy. So you can use, another oil you can use here I like is Palo Santo. Really stabilizing oils for this point. And this point is for the kidneys. It helps to reinforce kidney chi, tonify the yin functions of the body, draws the energy down, is very grounding. It's useful for before sleep if you need to draw the energy down, if you have trouble going to sleep, any sort of internal wind, tremors, anxiety. This is a really useful point for calming all of that down. You can do it on both sides. So those are my points for you. I could share more, but I think 3 points is good for right now. And I hope that this video supports you in finding context to hypersensitivity, whether it is a personal experience and you're trying to use essential oils to find some balance with that, or you're wondering like, why can't I approach aromatherapy? I've got this hypersensitivity thing going on and I think it could be helpful. How do I deal with that? Instead of just closing the door or making our world smaller, hopefully this gives you context to how to balance it. Remember, you can use those points without oils. It's still going to be helpful to those organs and those systems of the body. And I've heard so many inspiring stories about how, when people are in situations that feel really impossible and they're really entrenched in it, working with our energy from the inside and shifting the energy internally first can sometimes create magical shifts in our life and insights and perspectives and unfoldings that line up to help us get to another layer of healing, change, transformation when we feel really entrenched. So that can be a helpful thing to hear if you're hypersensitive, but maybe you're still in it. Maybe you're still in a situation that is continuing to dysregulate and continuing to destabilize. Just working with the energy, let it be restorative, let it shift from the inside, and see if that can maybe begin to shift and ripple out into the external aspects of your life so that you can find the safety, the stability, the changes that you need to begin to find balance and regulate so that your sensitivity can become a superpower, a tool, a gift, rather than something that you have to constantly create scaffolding and all kinds of parameters around to avoid destabilization. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that this helps. And if you have any questions, let me know. Again, this is just my perspective. This is from my experience working with my practice as a yoga teacher, an aromatherapist, and a massage therapist, and through my own journey, through my own trauma, my own recovery from trauma. I hope that this gives you some more context to what hypersensitivity can be telling us and how to ask more questions and get curious so that we can see where it's leading us. And if you're local, I am offering aroma acupoint therapy, which can be a really useful and more in-depth way of shifting the energy from within with traditional Chinese medicine, 5 elements philosophy, and acupoint and aromatherapy together. So check out my website if you want to learn more, and if you're local, I have some online booking for you, so you can check out my schedule and see what's available there. Okay, thanks so much. Bye.